So here we have the flank section. Now, this is basically the beef six-pack, or the beef's tummy. So what we're going to do is we're going to extract all the muscles from here so we can see what's in here. Muscle on top that you see, this is the tail end of the skirt steak. Directly underneath that is going to be our bavette, or bottom sirloin flap meat. In Argentina they also refer to it as vacío. This muscle outside here looks a little bit like a beaver tail, and that's your flank steak. The last muscle, we don't really harvest this one all that much, but it is quite popular in Argentina, and this is called the matambre, and it's just this exterior muscle on the exterior of the beef. And so I'm going to show you all these muscles so you can see where they're from. So I'm going to do a very shallow cut, basically just to break the membrane around this skirt. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to pull up, see if I can find that skirt, because directly underneath it is the bavette. And this piece of skirt is an outstanding piece of skirt. It's actually where the skirt is the biggest. If you're looking for a good muscle to cut stir fry from or to use for fajitas, this is an outstanding piece of meat. In Mexico, they refer to this muscle as falda. Actually, most of these muscles, though, refer to them all as falda, which literally translated means skirt. And this is often what they're going for when they're when they want a steak to make tacos with. So that is your skirt, or part of it. Next, we're going to go for the bottom sirloin flap meat. It doesn't sound very sexy as a cut, which is why in Canada it didn't do so well for the longest time. But the French and the Argentinians really know how to use this muscle, and so a lot of times when we merchandise it, that's what we're referring to. So we'll call it either bavette or vacío. And it's just where I feel like those particular places do this muscle the most justice. This is easily one of the Healthy Butcher's favorite cuts of beef, and it's just because it's so well marbled, it's so tender. It's fantastic for large groups of people, or you can cut it down into smaller steaks. Just absolutely versatile. As you can see, this particular region, it's layered, and so it takes a little bit of finesse to get it out, but it's a matter of just pulling on the muscle and then following it out. Now, in Argentina, this is a prepared vacío, but we're going to take it a step further and we're going to fully clean it up once we're all done. Next up, we're going to remove the flank steak. And so the flank is just here, and we're just going to score around it. There's our flank steak. And last but not least, let's just remove that matambre just so we know what it is. We do get a lot of emails from people all over the world asking about this particular muscle, and so I'm going to just take the time to illustrate it. This muscle hasn't really picked up much traction in North America, but like I said, in Argentina it's quite popular. And I heard the Argentinians know one or two things about beef, so let's just pay a little respect and show them where it is. Now, when you have a side of beef hanging, this muscle is much larger. and so often they would be removing the entire section from a side. But here my beef is cut into quarters, so I can't get quite all of it. But there you go. All right, there is still a lot of good trimmings in this piece here, but for now you don't need to see me clean this up, so I'm just going to put this off to the side and clean up those muscles. Let's start with this piece of skirt. There is a membrane on the top. The membrane is primarily made up of elastin and also some fat in there. Okay, this piece looks good enough to eat. Next up, we're going to go to this bavette or vacío or bottom sirloin tri-tip, whichever way you want to call it. I'm just going to remove. I'm sure everybody in Argentina is cringing right now as I remove all of this, and I'm sorry, but it's just how we do things here in Canada. One of the awesome things about cutting beef in the city of Toronto is that you're constantly cutting for every nationality around the world, so you get to learn just about every single cut of beef in every single language and the different ways of preparing it all. This elastin would be holding together all these muscle fibers, and so that's why we tend to remove it. But if you use like an Argentinian grill, the way that they're going to prepare it, because it's at low, slow heat, it'll melt away the collagen that's holding those fibers on, and that's how they tenderize it so well. But in France, this is a typical piece of meat to use for steak frite, and so this would be on a higher heat grill. And so in order to do that, you must remove this elastin in order to get the great results that this particular muscle can produce. Just feathering off all this elastin. Alright, one of the things you should know about this muscle, because it's long and skinny, people would tend to want to cut it this way in order to make when they go to serve it. But you have to remember to cut against the grains, and so the grains are actually running this way, so when you go to serve it, you want to make sure you're slicing against the grain in order to make sure that your slices are tender. But that is bottom sirloin flat meat, otherwise known as bavette or vacío. Finally, we got our flank steak, and like we did with the other ones, we're going to remove this membrane. Now this muscle is just about the leanest muscle on the entire animal. So if you're looking, so unlike the skirt or the bavette, this one has very little intermuscular marbling. However, the muscle itself is very, very similar to these other muscles, except for the fact that it doesn't have that same quantity of fat. And what little fat I have on it, I tend to remove it because most people who go for the flank are going for it because it's lean. Because of these nice long fibers, the flank, same with the skirt and the bavette, They all hold on to marinades and spice rubs really, really well. But if you got a great piece of beef, you don't need much to make any of these cuts sing. So I would say, like, just with the quality of this particular grass-fed animal, I would just put a salt and pepper and maybe a little bit of olive oil on it and grill it up and let the meat do the talking. There you have it. The muscles from the flank region, 100% grass-fed beef here in Ontario. Skirt, bavette, flank, and matambre. Thank you very much. Hope to see you soon.